Cinder Gulch, Arizona Territory, 1887. A dying frontier town, trapped between Red Rock Mountains and miles of merciless desert. Silver miners fight cattlemen over water. Railroad agents quietly purchase stolen land. And respectable men conduct their darkest business behind the velvet curtains of the Silver Spur Saloon. The town belongs to Thorn Dacre, a cold-blooded cattle baron known only as the Duke. He owns the sheriff, the stagecoach line, and nearly every grave outside town. But tonight, a young woman named Eulalie Voss is about to discover the one secret even the Duke is willing to kill to protect. Eulalie Voss fled the Silver Spur barefoot, while her furious date fired his pistol behind her. She leapt into an empty stagecoach. Click. Every door locked. From the darkness, Thorn Dacre leaned close. "You're not leaving," the ruthless Duke whispered. "You're mine now." Then Eulalie saw her dead sister's locket in his hand. Why did he have it? And who had just climbed onto the roof? Please, subscribe to my channel, because what happens when that stagecoach starts moving will change everything. The stagecoach lurched forward before Eulalie could reach the handle. She slammed her shoulder against the door. It did not move. Boots scraped across the roof. Thorn Dacre kept his eyes on her. Her sister's silver locket swung from his fingers as the wheels struck the road. That belonged to Melis. I know. A gunshot tore through the roof and buried itself in the seat beside her. Thorn caught Eulalie around the waist and dragged her to the floor. Another bullet punched through the wood. Glass burst over them. "Stay down. Who is up there? The man who took you to supper." Orrin Vale had smiled when he invited her to the Silver Spur. He had bowed like a gentleman and offered marriage. When she refused his ring, he called her an ungrateful orphan and reached for his pistol. Now he was crawling across the roof. Eulalie pushed against Thorn's chest. "Why is he following me?" "Because you heard something you were never meant to hear." In the saloon corridor, she had heard men whispering about graves, stolen deeds, and a train arriving before sunrise. One sentence had followed her into the street. The Voss woman must never reach the courthouse. The boots moved toward the rear door. "When I open it, stay inside," Thorn said. "You locked me in. To keep you alive. You said I was yours." His jaw tightened. "I said what Orrin needed to hear." The rear door flew open. Orrin hung from the roof rail, blood running from his temple. "Hand her over, Dacre." "No. She belongs to the agreement. She belongs to herself." Orrin laughed. "Since when do you care what a woman wants?" Pain flashed across Thorn's face. Orrin fired. The bullet cut Thorn's arm. Thorn seized his wrist and drove it against the doorframe. The pistol fell beneath the racing wheels. Orrin kicked him and lunged for Eulalie. She grabbed broken glass and sliced his palm. Thorn caught him by the throat and forced him toward the open door. His face became cold and empty. Eulalie saw the ruthless Duke people whispered about. The man who owned Cinder Gulch and buried enemies beneath his pasture. "You kill me," Orrin gasped. "And Judge Calder hangs the girl by dawn." "Do not kill him," Eulalie said. "If he knows what happened to my sister, I need him alive." Orrin tore free and threw himself from the coach. His body struck the dirt and vanished. Thorn shut the door. Eulalie pressed the glass to his throat. "Where did you find the locket?" "Near Salt Widow Pass." "Was Melis alive?" For a few minutes, the anger left her body. "She had been shot," he said. "Her horse was gone. She kept trying to stand because she had to reach you." Eulalie remembered Melis laughing in their doorway, promising to return before winter. What did she say? Men in Cinder Gulch were stealing land from widows and families. They forged debts, burned records, and killed anyone who challenged them. She had proof. The ledger. Yes. Who killed her? She never said. She spoke one name before she died. Orin? Mine. Eulalie stared at him. She said, Dacre knows where the bodies are. Then she gave me the locket. Why did you keep it? Because I failed her. She slapped him. Silence did not protect me, she said. It left me wondering whether she suffered alone. I know. You know nothing. I know what it is to wait for someone who never comes home. For the first time, the legend disappeared. He was only a wounded man in darkness. Blood soaked his sleeve. Eulalie lowered the glass. Give me your arm. It is a scratch. You are bleeding on the floor. The floor has seen worse. She found bandages, whiskey, a needle, and thread beneath the seat. While she stitched the wound, pieces of his past escaped. His father had lost their home in a card game. His mother died because they could not pay a doctor. His younger brother, Severin, vanished during a winter storm. Thorn never found a body. He learned that anything left unguarded could be taken. He built Dacre Ranch from sick cattle, sleepless nights, and rage. He checked every fence, paid his workers fairly, and fed hungry children through the back door. He also destroyed anyone who threatened what he had built. Power made him feared. Fear kept him alone. Eulalie tied the stitch. What are you afraid of losing now? Nothing. That is a lie. You have known me less than an hour. Men who need nothing do not build walls around everything. His eyes settled on her. You ask dangerous questions. Only men with dangerous answers fear questions. The coach reached the ridge. Dacre Ranch spread below them behind a stone wall and armed riders. Are those men protecting you? Eulalie asked. Or keeping everyone else out? Both. The coach stopped in the yard. A silver-haired man opened the door. Bramwell Say had worked beside Thorn since the ranch was one ruined barn. His expression hardened when he saw Eulalie. You brought her here? Orin tried to take her. That is not what I asked. She stays in the east room. Eulalie stepped down. I do not stay where I am ordered. Bramwell studied her. She sounds like Maylis. Do not speak her name as though you knew her. I knew her well enough to owe her my life. A rider burst through the gate. Fire at the south barn. Flames rose behind the corrals. Men ran for buckets. Horses screamed against their stalls. Thorn forgot his wound and sprinted. The barn doors were chained from outside. He tore the chain free and vanished into the smoke. A black mare burst out, then another. Part of the roof collapsed. Thorn! Bramwell shouted. No answer came. Eulalie covered her mouth and ran inside. She found Thorn beneath a broken beam, gripping the halter of a terrified stallion. Fire climbed his coat. Leave me, he coughed. Take Caligo. You truly are mad. She beat out the flames and pushed against the beam. It would not move. The stallion reared. Touch his nose, Thorn said. Speak softly. Eulalie reached for the horse. You are safe. Caligo stilled. You are lying to him, Thorn said. You told me to. A crack sounded above them. The roof began to fall. Eulalie released Caligo and threw herself beside Thorn. Together they pushed. The beam shifted enough for him to drag his leg free. His knee buckled the moment he stood. She caught him around the waist. For a man who claimed to need nothing, he leaned on her with no strength left to hide. They pulled Caligo through the doorway as the roof came down. Heat struck their backs and threw them into the yard. Thorn rolled over Eulalie, shielding her from burning wood. His arms locked around her. His heart pounded against hers, fast and frightened. He lifted his head. Soot covered his face. "You came back for me. I came for the horse. Liar." She pushed him away, but her hands lingered against his chest. Bramwell hurried over. The fire was set. We found oil along the wall. Thorn rose with difficulty. Who was on watch? Ashcombe Rill. Where is he? Gone. The gate stood open. A lone rider waited on the ridge. Orrin Vale raised one hand. Silver flashed between his fingers. Eulalie reached for her neck. The locket was gone. No. Orrin turned his horse and vanished into the darkness. Thorn called for a saddle. Bramwell caught his arm. "You can barely stand." He took the key. Eulalie stared at him. What key? Thorn's face filled with the regret he had carried since the coach. "The key to the box your sister died protecting." "Where is the box?" "In her grave." The yard became silent. "You buried the proof with her." "It was the only place no one would search." "Orrin knows now." "Yes." She looked toward the ridge. "Then we ride. You stay here." "You said I belong to myself." "You do." "Then I choose to go." His face hardened. Salt Widow Pass is 6 hours away. Orrin has armed men, and the trail runs through Black Mercy Canyon. I searched for Melees for 3 years. "A canyon will not stop me." "No," he said. "That is what frightens me." Bramwell brought 2 horses. Thorn mounted Caligo, despite the blood on his sleeve and pain in his leg. Eulalie took a grey mare called Vespera. They rode through the gate. The burning barn glowed behind them like a warning. For the first hour, neither spoke. The trail narrowed as it climbed into the hills. Moonlight touched sharp stone. Coyotes called from far below. Eulalie watched Thorn ride ahead. He sat straight, but his left hand shook when he thought she could not see. "You should not have come," he said. "You should stop saying that. I could take you back. You could try." Caligo's ears turned at her voice. Thorn looked over his shoulder. Melis said the same thing. Pain opened inside Eulalie. "Tell me about her last minutes." "No. You owe me." "I know." "Then tell me." He slowed until they rode side by side. She was angry. Eulalie almost smiled. "That sounds like her." She cursed the men who shot her, cursed the horse that threw her, cursed me for finding her too late. Did she suffer? Yes. The truth cut deep, but she was grateful he did not hide it. Was she afraid? Not for herself. For me? Yes. Tears filled Eulalie's eyes. She kept them there. "She asked me to find you," Thorn said. "I promised I would. You broke that promise." "Yes." "Why?" "Everyone I try to protect becomes a target." "That is not protection. That is fear, wearing a noble coat." His face tightened. She understood him then. Thorn could face bullets and fire without blinking. What he could not face was the chance that his presence destroyed the people he cared about. "You think your mother died because you failed," she said. "You think Severin vanished because you were not strong enough. You think Melees died because you arrived too late. So you built walls, hired guns, and made a town fear you. But you are still that boy guarding an empty door. Enough. You asked what I feared. Now I know what frightens you." He reached for her reins. A rifle cracked from the rocks. Vespera stumbled. Eulalie flew from the saddle and rolled toward the canyon edge. Thorn jumped from Caligo and caught her wrist before she fell. Stones poured into the darkness beneath her boots. Gunfire erupted from both sides of the trail. He pulled her up and dragged her behind a boulder. Are you hit? No. His hands searched her face, shoulders, and arms. I said I am not hit. His hands stopped at her waist. For one breath, they forgot the gunman. A bullet shattered the rock above them. Thorn drew his revolver and fired toward the ridge. A man cried out. How many? Eulalie asked. 5. I saw 2 on the left. You were falling. I still have eyes. He handed her a small pistol. Can you use it? My sister taught me. A shadow moved behind a juniper. Eulalie fired. The shadow fell. Thorn looked at her. What? You did not hesitate. I have spent 3 years imagining the face of the man who killed her. That was not him. I know. Shock began to shake her hands. A rider charged down the trail. Thorn fired once. The man fell. Another attacker rushed from behind and struck Thorn across the head with a rifle. He collapsed. Eulalie pulled the trigger. The pistol clicked empty. The attacker grabbed her hair and dragged her backward. She drove her elbow into his ribs. He cursed and raised the rifle. Thorn caught his ankle from the ground. The man fell. Eulalie seized a stone and struck him. His body went still. Silence returned in broken pieces. Thorn pushed himself up. Blood ran along his temple. Eulalie dropped the stone. I killed him. He would have killed you. I killed him. He came closer, but did not touch her. You survived him, he said. There is a difference. Is that what you tell yourself? The question wounded him. They searched the bodies. Each man carried a brass token stamped with the seal of Judge Malrec Calder. Eulalie had seen the judge at church suppers, smiling beside grieving widows and praising honest labor. The judge ordered this. He ordered your sister's death too. You knew? I suspected. You let him remain in power. I needed proof. How many people died while you waited? Thorn looked away. A low whistle came from the rocks. Bramwell stepped into the moonlight with a rifle raised. Relief crossed Eulalie's face, then vanished when she saw where he was aiming. At Thorn. Move away from him, Miss Voss, Bramwell said. Thorn did not reach for his gun. Why? Eulalie asked. Bramwell's eyes shone with tears. Because Orrin Vale was not the man who shot your sister. Eulalie felt the night close around her. Who did? Bramwell's rifle trembled. Thorn stood very still. Tell her, Bramwell said. Eulalie looked from one man to the other. Thorn showed no surprise, only guilt. Thorn, she whispered. Who killed Maylies? He stared at her, and for the first time, the ruthless Duke seemed afraid to speak. I did. Eulalie forgot how to breathe. The pistol slipped from her fingers. Bramwell moved closer. Ask him why he buried her before sunrise. Ask him why he burned the dress she wore. Ask him why he threatened every ranch hand who saw blood on Caligo's saddle. Eulalie looked at the black stallion. Caligo shifted beneath the moonlight. The horse had carried Thorn the night Maylies died. You said you found her, Eulalie whispered. I did. You said men shot her. They did. You just said you killed her. Thorn's face looked carved from stone. Both things are true. Rage moved through her so quickly that the cold vanished. She crossed the distance and struck him. He did not stop her. She hit his chest again and again until her fists hurt. You let me touch you. You let me save you. You spoke about her as though you mourned her. I did mourn her. You do not get to mourn someone you murdered. Bramwell lowered his rifle slightly. We need to leave. Orrin's men will return. Eulalie seized Thorn's revolver from his holster and aimed at his heart. He did not move. Tell me the truth now. The truth will not bring her back, but it may send you to her. His eyes held hers. Then pull the trigger. Eulalie kept the revolver aimed at Thorn's heart. He did not reach for it. He only watched her with the tired eyes of a man who had waited years for punishment. Her finger tightened. A rifle cracked from the ridge. The bullet knocked the revolver from her hand. Eulalie cried out and clutched her numb fingers. Thorn dragged her behind him and fired into the darkness. A voice came from above them. "Still protecting women who want you dead, brother?" A rider appeared between two black rocks. He sat on a pale horse with a rifle across his saddle. A scar ran from his temple to his jaw. Thorn lowered his gun. "Severin!" Eulalie stared at the brother who had vanished in a winter storm. Severin Dacre was alive. Bramwell raised his rifle. "You should have stayed buried." Severin smiled. "You first." Lightning flashed. Clouds swallowed the stars. Thorn stepped forward. "Where have you been?" "Waiting for you to admit what you are." "You fired at her." "I saved her from ending this too quickly." Eulalie pushed past Thorn. "You know what happened to Melis." Severin studied her face. "You have her eyes. Answer me." "I know she begged my brother not to do it." Thorn went still. "You were there, close enough to hear the gunshot." Eulalie turned on him. "Why did you shoot her?" Shadows moved along the ridge. Thorn saw them first. "Get down." Gunfire tore through the canyon. He shoved Eulalie behind a boulder as bullets struck the rocks. Bramwell fired twice. One rider fell. More rushed down the slope. Severin shot a man crawling through the brush. "Calder's men," he called. "You led them here," Thorn shouted. "I knew you would need encouragement." Rain struck the dust and gathered around their boots. Bramwell grabbed Eulalie's arm. "There is an old mining tunnel east of the trail." A bullet struck his shoulder. Eulalie caught him before he fell. Blood poured through his coat. Severin rode down and pulled his horse beside them. "Put him across the saddle." Bramwell tried to lift his rifle. "I would rather bleed." "You may." A roar rose beyond the canyon wall. Severin looked north. Flood. A wall of water was racing through the pass. Thorn lifted Bramwell onto the pale horse. Eulalie took the reins. They ran for the tunnel. One of Calder's riders caught Eulalie from behind and dragged her into the mud. She drove her injured hand into his throat. Pain shot to her elbow. He struck her across the mouth. Thorn slammed into him. They rolled across the ground. The rider drew a knife and forced it toward Thorn's chest. Eulalie seized a fallen rifle and struck the man's head. The man collapsed. Thorn looked up. "I still want to kill you," she said. "I did not say anyone else could." The roar grew louder. They reached the tunnel as the flood rounded the bend. Water filled the canyon, carrying branches and horses. Severin pulled Eulalie inside, while Thorn dragged Bramwell from the saddle. The pale horse tore free and vanished. Mud exploded into the entrance as they ran deeper. Thorn struck a match. It revealed rotten beams and rails leading beneath the mountain. Bramwell groaned. Thorn reached for her bleeding lip. She stepped away, and his hand fell. Severin lit an old lantern. "There is another way out." "How do you know?" Eulalie asked. "I lived here." Names covered the walls. One had been carved by a child. "Severin." Thorn stared at the carving. "They kept you here. Your father's creditors took me. Calder's father owned this mine. Orphaned boys worked the shafts. The dead were listed as runaways. You had a family," Thorn said. "Not one that found me." Eulalie saw the lost boy beneath the feared duke. Everything he owned had been built around that wound. I searched for you, Thorn said, for 3 months. I was 14. I was 9. A beam groaned above them. Bramwell coughed. This place will not hold. Severin walked deeper with the lantern. Thorn followed, but Eulalie caught his sleeve. His pain does not erase what you did. I know. Then tell me about Melis. Not here. You have hidden behind that answer for 3 years. Bramwell's breathing weakened. Thorn knelt. We save him first. You always find another reason to delay. Bramwell opened his eyes. Tell her. Thorn faced Eulalie. When I found Melis, Calder's men had tied her to a tree. They had the ledger, but believed she made a copy. Did she? Yes. Where is it? She would not tell them, and you shot her. Blasting powder lay beneath the tree. They were waiting for me to cut her loose. Why? They wanted us buried together. Melis told me to fire at the rope, Thorn said. She thought the bullet would cut it without touching the wire. Did it? Yes. Severin laughed softly. Thorn turned. What? You still cannot say the rest. Eulalie looked between them. Severin raised the lantern. His shot freed her. Then Calder's men opened fire. Melis was hit in the back. Severin continued. He carried her to the river. She was alive when they reached the bank. I told her that, Thorn said. You did not tell her what happened next. Severin drew a pistol. Bramwell struggled to rise. Do not. Severin aimed at Thorn. Melis knew the river led to the judge's search camp. She knew they would find her. She also knew pain might make her speak. Eulalie felt cold. What did she ask him to do? Thorn's eyes filled with grief. She asked me not to let them take her. No! She put my gun against her heart. Eulalie backed into the wall. I refused, he said. But you did it. She said they would kill you if she revealed the copy. She could feel herself weakening. You could have carried her somewhere else. I tried. You could have saved her. I could not. You do not know that. I know. His certainty broke something inside her. She struck him, but her hand had no strength. He let her fist rest against his chest. I hated her for asking, he said. I hated myself for listening. I buried her before dawn, because Calder's men searched every road. I burned her bloody dress. I silenced the ranch hands, because one careless word would have led them to you. Eulalie pulled away. Her anger no longer had a clean place to land. She hated him for firing. She hated Melis for asking. She hated herself for understanding. Bramwell nodded through his pain. It is true, I helped bury her. A sharp click came from the darkness. Severin cocked his pistol. That is a touching confession, he said. Now tell her the final part. Thorn's body went rigid. Eulalie wiped her face. There is more. There is always more with him. The tunnel floor rumbled. Dust fell. Severin aimed the lantern toward a narrow shaft. Fresh boot prints marked the mud. We are not alone. A woman's voice came from the darkness. No, you are not. Eulalie stopped breathing. The voice was weak, but she knew it from childhood songs and broken dreams. A woman stepped into the light. Silver streaked her hair. A scar crossed her throat. The other half of the broken Voss locket hung at her neck. Eulalie's knees nearly gave way. The woman looked at Thorn with hatred, then turned to her. You should never have come looking for my grave, Melis said. Now Judge Calder knows you are alive. Eulalie could not move. The woman standing before her had the same eyes she remembered from childhood, the same tired kindness, hidden beneath years of pain. But she was older, changed, alive. Maylies! The name left Eulalie's mouth like a prayer she was afraid to believe. Maylies took one step closer. I wanted to come home. Eulalie shook her head slowly. No, her voice cracked. No, you don't get to say that. Maylies stopped. I buried you. I know. I cried beside an empty grave. I know. I spent 3 years believing you died alone. Maylies looked down. That was the part I hated most. The tunnel became silent, except for the distant sound of rushing water. Thorn stood frozen. Eulalie turned toward him. You knew. His silence answered before he did. You knew she was alive. I knew she survived. The pain in Eulalie's chest turned into anger. How long? 3 years. She stepped toward him. You let me mourn her. I thought she was safer away from you. Safer? Her laugh was broken. You let me hate you. I deserved it. That was not your choice to make. Thorn looked away. For the first time, Eulalie saw something worse than guilt in him. Shame. Maylies moved between them. Stop. Neither listened. Eulalie pointed at Thorn. He took your death and carried it like a secret. Maylies looked at him, and I asked him to. The words stopped Eulalie. Maylies touched the locket around her neck. When I woke after the shooting, I knew Calder would never stop searching. I knew if I returned, he would use me to find you. You could have sent a letter. To where? Eulalie opened her mouth. Nothing came. They had moved constantly after Maylies disappeared. They changed towns, names, and homes. They were always afraid someone would recognize them. Maylies continued. Thorn found me before Calder did. He hid me in an abandoned settlement north of the mountains. Eulalie looked at him. Why didn't you tell me? Because every person close to me becomes a weapon someone can use. You keep saying that like it is wisdom. Thorn looked at her. It is experience. A gunshot echoed through the tunnel. Everyone dropped. The bullet struck the wall where Maylies had stood. Severin cursed. They followed us. Lanterns appeared in the darkness behind them. Judge Calder's men entered the tunnel. At the front walked a man wearing a black coat, untouched by the rain. Judge Malrec Calder, the man who shook hands with widows, the man who prayed beside graves, the man who ordered them. I must admit, Calder said, this reunion is more emotional than I expected. Thorn raised his revolver. Calder smiled. Still playing the hero. You murdered innocent people. No. Calder stepped forward. I removed problems. Eulalie felt disgust rise inside her. You killed my sister. Calder looked at Maylies. Your sister was stubborn. Maylies answered quietly. She still is. Calder laughed. I offered you a comfortable life, Maylies. You could have joined me. You had intelligence, ambition. I had a conscience. That is why you lost. The men behind him aimed their rifles. Thorn moved in front of Eulalie. Calder noticed. Interesting. He looked at Eulalie. The great Thorn Dacre finally found something worth losing. Leave her out of this. You already brought her into it. Calder removed a folded paper from his coat. The land records. Eulalie's eyes narrowed. The ones Maylies stole. I did not steal them, Maylies said. You copied them. Calder smiled. And the copies are useless without the original ledger. Thorn stared at him. You never found it. No. Calder's eyes moved toward Eulalie. But she will. Everyone became still. Eulalie felt the weight of every stare. What are you talking about? Maylis closed her eyes. No. Calder smiled wider. Tell her. Thorn's voice became low. Eulalie. She turned. What? He looked like a man standing before a firing squad. The ledger was never hidden in the grave. Her heart dropped. Where was it? He did not answer. Where? Your father's house. Eulalie felt the air leave her. My father died before Maylis. Yes. What does he have to do with this? Maylis stepped closer. Everything. Eulalie looked at her sister. What are you saying? Maylis swallowed. Our father was not the poor farmer we believed he was. Rainwater dripped from the ceiling. He worked for Calder. The words hurt more than any bullet. No. He helped create the false land claims. No. He realized what Calder planned and tried to expose him. Eulalie shook her head. My father was kind. He was. Maylis looked at her. He was also afraid. Thorn spoke softly. Your father hid the ledger before they killed him. Eulalie stared at him. You knew all of this. I knew parts. You always knew more than me. I was trying to protect you. Stop. Her voice echoed. Everyone keeps protecting me by taking away my choices. No one spoke. The truth hurt, because it was finally hers. Not theirs. Hers. Calder stepped closer. Give me the ledger, Eulalie, or what? Or your friends die. His men raised their rifles. Thorn looked at her. Do not. She understood the warning. Do not surrender. But Bramwell was wounded. Maylis was exhausted. Severin was bleeding from his side. Everyone she cared about was standing between her and a man who would destroy them. She stepped forward. I will take you to it. Thorn grabbed her wrist. No. She looked at him. You do not command me. I am not commanding you. His voice broke. I am asking you. The anger in her face softened for a moment. Why? Because I know what Calder does when he gets what he wants. She looked into his eyes. Then help me stop him. The words surprised him. Calder laughed. You believe you can defeat me? Eulalie turned toward him. No. She picked up the fallen rifle. But I believe you can bleed. The tunnel exploded into violence. Severin fired first. The lanterns shattered. Darkness swallowed everyone. Eulalie ran. Not away. Toward Calder. She struck one guard with the rifle and grabbed his keys. Thorn moved like a storm beside her. They fought together, without speaking. For years, Thorn had fought alone. Now he trusted someone beside him. That terrified him more than any enemy. Calder escaped deeper into the tunnel. After him, Thorn said. Eulalie stopped. No. He looked back. Calder wants us angry. He wants us chasing him. Thorn studied her. What are you thinking? She looked at the old mine tracks. He came here because he thinks the ledger is hidden. Yes, but he does not know where. Maylis stepped forward. You found something. Eulalie pointed at the wall. A small carving was hidden beneath years of dirt. A flower. Her mother's symbol. My father used this mark. Thorn approached. Behind the stone was a narrow opening. Inside sat a metal box. Calder's voice came from behind them. You finally found it. Everyone turned. Calder stood with a pistol against Bramwell's head. The old ranch hand was barely standing. You have caused me years of trouble, Calder said. Eulalie held the box. You wanted this. Yes? Then take it. Thorn looked at her. He knew something was wrong. Calder reached out. Eulalie tossed the box. He caught it. A smile crossed his face. Then he opened it. Empty. His expression changed. "You foolish girl." Eulalie stepped back. "You never asked what was inside." Calder's eyes narrowed. "Where is the ledger?" "Somewhere you cannot reach." He raised his pistol. Thorn moved. Calder fired. The shot struck Thorn. He fell. Eulalie screamed. Everything slowed. She ran to him. Blood spread across his shirt. Calder grabbed Melis. "Enough." He pulled her toward the exit. "You have what you wanted." "No," Eulalie said. She pressed her hand against Thorn's wound. Calder looked back. "What?" She looked at the man who had spent years hiding behind fear. Then she looked at Thorn, the man everyone called Ruthless, the man who saved strangers, the man who had finally allowed someone to see him. "You took everything from people because you were afraid to lose." Calder stared. "You became the same monster you hated." For the first time, anger crossed his face. "You think you are different." Eulalie held Thorn's hand. "Yes." Calder smiled coldly. "We will see." He dragged Melis into the darkness. Thorn's eyes opened slightly. "Did he take it?" "No." "Good. You are bleeding." "I noticed." She pressed harder against the wound. "Do not die." A weak smile touched his lips. "That an order?" "Yes." "Then I suppose I have to listen." Behind them, the tunnel shook. The flood was coming. Bramwell looked toward the entrance. "We have minutes." Severin stared into the darkness where Calder disappeared. "My brother cannot chase him." Eulalie looked at Thorn. "He does not have to." She stood. "We do." Thorn tried to rise. She pushed him back. "You are staying." His eyes widened. "Eulalie." "No." She looked at him firmly. "You spent your whole life carrying everyone's pain. Now someone carries yours." For a moment, he saw Melis in her. The same courage, the same fire. But Eulalie was not Melis. She was stronger, because she had survived without knowing she had anyone coming for her. Thorn finally nodded. Severin picked up his rifle. "I will go." Eulalie looked at him. "Why?" He looked toward the tunnel. "Because I lost my brother once." He glanced at Thorn. "I will not lose him again." The three of them entered the darkness after Calder. Behind them, the flood roared closer. Ahead waited the man who had destroyed their lives. And somewhere beyond the mountain, the missing ledger waited to reveal the final truth. The truth about their father, the truth about Thorn, and the truth about who really pulled the trigger that night Melis disappeared. The tunnel grew darker with every step. Water rushed behind them, filling the old mine passage and swallowing the tracks beneath their feet. The mountain trembled, as if it wanted to bury every secret hidden inside it. Eulalie moved quickly, but her mind was still with Thorn. She could still feel his blood on her hands. For 3 years, she had imagined the man who knew the truth about Melis as a monster, someone without a heart, someone who chose silence because he did not care. Now she knew the truth was worse. He cared too much, and that was what destroyed him. Severin walked ahead with his rifle ready. "He will try to bargain," he said. "Calder?" "Yes. He has nothing left to bargain with." Severin glanced back. "That is when men like him become the most dangerous." The tunnel opened into an old underground chamber. The walls were covered with faded names carved by miners who never returned home. Broken tools rested beneath layers of dust. A forgotten place filled with forgotten people. At the center stood Calder. Maylis was beside him. A pistol rested against her side. "You followed," Calder said. Eulalie raised her weapon. "You knew we would." "Yes." "Then why wait?" Calder smiled. "Because I wanted you to understand something." The sound of rushing water echoed through the chamber. "You think Thorndaker is different from me." Eulalie said nothing. "He is not." Maylis looked at her. "Do not listen," Calder continued. "He built an empire by taking what he wanted. Land, money, fear, loyalty. He protected people." Calder laughed. "Protection is just control with a prettier name." The words hit harder because Eulalie had once believed something similar. She remembered Thorn locking the stagecoach door. "You are not leaving. You are mine now." She remembered the fear in his eyes when he said it. Not ownership, panic. Calder stepped closer. "He kept you trapped in the dark because he believed he knew better. He saved me. He lied to you." Eulalie lowered her gun slightly. Calder noticed. "That is the difference between us. I admit what I am." A sudden movement came from behind. Severin fired. The bullet struck the pistol from Calder's hand. Maylis moved instantly, grabbing Calder's arm and twisting it away. Eulalie ran. She reached Maylis and pulled her free. For a moment, the sisters stood together again, like they had before the world took everything. Then the ceiling cracked. A piece of stone fell between them. Calder disappeared into the smoke. "He is gone," Severin said. "No," Eulalie replied. She saw his footprints. They led toward another passage, the hidden passage, the one meant only for whoever owned the mine. They followed. The chamber beyond was filled with wooden crates, documents, maps, records, the stolen history of Cinder Gulch. Calder stood beside a burning lantern. The ledger rested in his hand. Eulalie froze. "You found it." Calder looked at the old book. "Your father was smarter than I gave him credit for." Maylis stepped forward. "Put it down." Calder opened the ledger. Names filled the pages. Families, widows, children, people who had been robbed of everything. "I spent 20 years building this town. You destroyed it," Eulalie said. "No," he looked at her. "I created it. You created suffering. I created order." Maylis shook her head. "You never understood people." Calder smiled. "And you never understood power." He threw the ledger into the lantern flame. Eulalie screamed. She rushed forward, but Calder blocked her. The pages burned. Years of proof. Thousands of lives. Gone. The smell of smoke filled the room. Eulalie fell to her knees. No, not again. Another person taken. Another truth destroyed. She had spent her whole life chasing answers, and once again they disappeared in front of her. Calder looked down at her. "This is why people like us win." She looked up. "People like us? You and me?" "No." "Yes." His voice softened. "You have spent your entire life angry. You want revenge. You want someone to suffer the way you suffered." Eulalie said nothing, because part of her feared he was right. She imagined Calder begging. She imagined pulling the trigger. She imagined watching him lose everything. The thought scared her, because it felt good. Calder saw it. "That anger is your inheritance." "No, your father had it too." Eulalie stood. "My father tried to stop you. Your father became afraid. The room became quiet. He knew the truth about me. He knew what I had done. But when it was time to stand against me, he hesitated. Why? Because he wanted to protect his family." Calder stepped closer. "Fear makes people weak." Eulalie looked at him. "No," her voice was steady. Fear makes people human. Calder's expression changed. You sound like Thorn. I will take that as a compliment. A deep crack shook the mine. Water burst through the wall. Everyone ran. The burning ledger floated away in the flood. Calder grabbed Melis and dragged her toward the exit. Eulalie followed. A fallen beam crashed down. She stopped. On one side was the exit. On the other was a trapped worker beneath the ruins. A man who had been hiding from Calder's guards. A stranger. There was no time. If she helped him, Calder would escape. If she left him, she could catch Calder. The choice felt like a knife. Years ago, she would have chosen revenge. She would have let the world burn if it meant justice. But then she remembered Thorn, the man who ran into a burning barn for a horse, the man who carried guilt that was never his, alone, the man who saved people even when no one saved him. She turned. She lifted the beam. The stranger coughed. "Leave me." "No. You will die." "Maybe." She pushed harder. "But I will not become him." The beam moved. The man crawled free. Behind them, Calder reached the exit. Eulalie saw him disappear. She lost him. Again. She dropped to the ground. The water rose around her. The stranger looked at her. "You chose me." "Yes." "Why?" She looked toward the tunnel where Thorn waited. "Because someone once chose me." They escaped through a narrow passage just before the chamber collapsed. Outside, rain covered the mountain. The storm had turned the desert into a river. Severin looked back. "The ledger is gone." Melis shook her head. "No." She reached into her coat. Everyone stared. She pulled out several pages wrapped in oilcloth. Calder had burned a copy, not the original. Eulalie looked at her. "You knew?" Melis nodded. "Your father taught me never to carry everything in one place." A small smile touched her face. He was afraid, but he was not weak. The victory lasted only seconds. A rider appeared through the rain, then another. Calder's men. Severin lifted his rifle. "We cannot fight them here." Eulalie looked toward the mountain, then toward the distant lights of Cinder Gulch. "He is going back." Melis understood. "To destroy the courthouse records." "Yes, and kill anyone who can testify." Eulalie mounted the nearest horse. "We go back." Severin looked at her. "Your sister almost died because of this fight." Eulalie looked at Melis. "She survived." Then she looked toward the road leading home. "So will we." They rode through the storm. But Eulalie could not stop thinking about Thorn. He was alone, wounded, believing she had left him behind. She knew that feeling, the feeling of watching everyone leave. She found him before dawn, the old mine entrance behind them. Thorn sat against a tree, pale and exhausted. When he saw her, his eyes closed. "You came back." "Yes. I told you to run." "You tell everyone that." A faint smile crossed his face. "You should have." She knelt beside him. "You were wrong." His eyes opened. "About what?" "About needing to carry everything alone." The words hit him harder than any wound. For years, he believed pain was his punishment, that losing people was proof he was dangerous. But Eulalie was still there. Not because she forgot what he did, not because she forgave everything, because she saw him and stayed. "I thought losing people was my curse," he whispered. "What do you think now?" He looked at her. "That maybe I was supposed to learn how to stop letting them go." A gunshot interrupted them. The bullet struck the tree beside their heads. Eulalie pulled Thorn down. Across the valley, a rider watched. Judge Calder, alive, and beside him was someone Eulalie never expected to see. Her father, the man she buried 15 years ago. He raised a rifle and aimed directly at them. Eulalie stared across the valley. The world seemed to stop. Rain fell around her, but she did not feel it. The man standing beside Judge Calder could not be real. Not after 15 years, not after the funeral, not after all the nights she spent remembering a father who never came home. "Father!" The word escaped before she could stop it. Thorn looked at her. He saw the pain on her face. He saw the impossible hope fighting against fear. The rider lowered his rifle slightly. "Eulalie!" Her knees weakened. She knew that voice. Older, rougher, but still his. Calder Voss, the man she thought the earth had swallowed. Thorn reached for his revolver. "No!" Eulalie grabbed his arm. "Wait!" The rider smiled sadly. "That is why you were always different from your sister." Eulalie stepped forward. "You knew I was alive." Her father looked away. "Yes." The answer hurt more than a lie. "How long?" "Since the day I left." The anger came faster than the shock. "You left us." "I had to." "No." Her voice shook. "You chose to." Calder laughed beside him. "Careful, Calder. She inherited Melis's temper." Eulalie looked at the judge, then back at her father. "You work for him." Her father said nothing. That silence was worse. Thorn slowly stood despite the pain. "Eulalie, do not let him control the moment." Calder smiled, still protecting her. "You never learned," Thorn said. "No." Calder raised his pistol. "I learned very well." His men appeared around the ridge. They had been waiting. The storm had hidden them. Eulalie looked around. They were surrounded. Her father lowered his rifle. "Come with me, Eulalie." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because this ends today." "By helping him?" His face changed. "I am trying to save you." The words sounded familiar. Everyone said they were saving her. Melis hid the truth. Thorn locked doors. Her father disappeared. All of them made choices for her. She stepped closer. "No one saves me by taking away my choices." Her father looked wounded. For a moment, she saw the man who carried her when she was a child. Then she remembered the empty chair at the dinner table, the years without answers. "You were alive," she whispered. "Yes." "You heard us mourning you." His eyes lowered. "Yes." "And you stayed away." "I had no choice." "There is always a choice." The words surprised even her, because they were not only for him. They were for Thorn, for Melis, for herself. Calder stepped forward. "Enough." He looked at Thorn. "You always did love collecting broken people." Thorn's expression hardened. "You are the one who breaks them." "No." Calder smiled. "I simply show them what they already are." A gunshot exploded. Everyone moved. Thorn pulled Eulalie behind him. Her father fired at Calder's men. Confusion spread across the ridge. Calder shouted, "What are you doing?" Calder Voss looked at him. "What I should have done 15 years ago." The fight began. Rifles thundered through the rain. Horses panicked. Men fell into the mud. Thorn fired beside Severin as he and Melis reached the ridge. Eulalie looked at her father. "You changed sides." "No." He looked at Calder. "I finally picked one." They ran toward the old courthouse at the edge of town. The courthouse bell rang through the storm. Cinder Gulch was waking. People stepped outside. They saw the judge's men. They saw the Voss sisters. They saw Thorn Dacre. And they saw fear spreading through the streets. Calder entered the courthouse. "He will burn the records," Melis said. "He will erase everything," Eulalie replied. They pushed through the doors. Inside, Calder stood beside a pile of documents, the town records, land deeds, birth certificates, proof of every crime he committed. A lantern sat in his hand. "You should have stayed buried," he told Melis. She stepped forward. "You should have been afraid of the dead." Calder smiled. "I am afraid of nothing." Eulalie walked toward him. "No." Everyone looked at her. "You are afraid of everything." Calder laughed. "You know nothing about me. I know you spent your life destroying people because you were terrified someone would see you were not powerful." The smile disappeared. "You think kindness makes you strong?" "No." She looked at Thorn. "Choice does." Calder raised the lantern. "Then choose." He looked at the records. "Save these papers." He pointed toward Melis. "Or save your sister." Everyone froze. Melis stood near the door. Behind her, one of Calder's men held a knife. Eulalie felt the old anger return, the same anger that almost consumed her. She wanted the records. She wanted justice. She wanted the truth. But then she saw Melis, her sister, the person she lost, the person she spent years trying to find. Calder wanted her to choose between truth and love. He wanted her to become him, a person who sacrificed people for power. Eulalie lowered her weapon. "I choose her," Calder smiled. "Predictable." "No." Eulalie stepped forward. "I choose her because people matter more than paper." She looked around the courthouse. Records can be rebuilt. Her eyes moved to the townspeople gathering outside. Truth can survive. She faced Calder. But a life taken cannot be returned. For the first time, Calder looked uncertain. Thorn understood. He moved. The fight exploded. Severin attacked the guard holding Melis. Calder Voss grabbed the lantern. Calder fired. The bullet struck his hand. The lantern fell. Flames spread across the floor. Smoke filled the courthouse. Calder ran toward the back door. Thorn followed. Eulalie caught his arm. "No." He looked at her. "He gets away." "Not if we chase him." She looked at the burning records. "He wants us angry." Thorn understood. "He wants us to become him." "Yes." A moment passed. Then Thorn turned away from Calder. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. Not pulling the trigger. Not taking revenge. Walking away. Calder stopped in the doorway. He looked back. "You are weak." Thorn looked at him. "No." His voice was calm. "I am free." Calder disappeared into the storm. The fire consumed part of the courthouse. But not everything. Because people ran into the flames. Neighbors, families, workers. The same people who spent years afraid of Calder. They saved what they could. They saved each other. By sunrise, Cinder Gulch had changed. The town stood damaged, but alive. Thorn sat outside the courthouse, while a doctor wrapped his wound. Eulalie stood beside him. "You let him go?" "Yes." "Are you afraid?" He looked at her, terrified. She smiled slightly. "Good." "Good?" "Means you are finally honest." For the first time in years, Thorn laughed. It was quiet, almost unfamiliar. Severin approached. "I owe you an apology." Thorn looked up. "For what?" "For blaming you for everything." Thorn nodded. "I blamed myself first." Severin looked toward the town. "Maybe we both were wrong." Melis joined them. She looked at Eulalie. "I am sorry." Eulalie swallowed. "I am still angry." "I know. I do not know if I can forgive you yet." Melis nodded. "That is fair." Eulalie reached for her hand. "But I do not want to lose you again." Melis held on. Their father stood at a distance. Eulalie noticed. She walked toward him. He looked afraid. Not of death, of rejection. "I do not know what to call you," she said. His eyes filled. "I understand. But you are here." "Yes. And I need answers." "You deserve them." She nodded. "Then start with the truth." He looked toward the courthouse. Your mother knew about Calder before anyone else. She found his records. She was the reason your father tried to expose him. Eulalie listened. Every answer opened another question. But for the first time, she was not chasing ghosts. She was standing among the living. That evening, Thorn found her watching the sunset outside town.
You should rest.
So should you. I am not good at it. I noticed. He stood beside her. The silence between them felt different now. Not empty. Safe. I was wrong about you, he said. She looked at him. About what? I thought you needed protection. And now? He looked toward the town. Now I think you are the person who reminds everyone else how to be brave. She looked away. You still scare me. A small smile appeared. Good. Why? Because you are the only person who ever looked at me and saw the man beneath the name. The wind moved through the valley. For years, Thorn Dacre had been the Duke, a man made of walls, a man who believed love was something that disappeared. But standing beside Eulalie, he understood something. Some battles were not won by destroying enemies. Some were won by choosing not to become one. Far beyond the town, a rider watched from the hills, a familiar black coat, a familiar hatred. Judge Malrec Calder was alive, and he carried one final secret, a secret that would destroy everything they had fought to save. The first morning after Judge Calder disappeared felt different in Cinder Gulch. The town was still wounded. The courthouse walls were black from smoke. The streets were covered with broken glass and mud. The old buildings carried the marks of the battle that nearly destroyed them. But the town was breathing again. For years, people had walked with their heads lowered. They paid what Calder demanded. They stayed silent when neighbors lost their land. They looked away when families disappeared. Fear had become part of the town's foundation. But fear was not stronger than people who finally decided they had enough. The courthouse reopened 3 weeks later. The records that survived were placed on long wooden tables. Families came from miles away to search for their names. Some found their homes. Some found the names of loved ones who had been erased. Some found nothing, but for the first time, they knew the truth. And truth, Eulalie learned, was sometimes the first step toward healing. Thorn Dacre stood outside the courthouse, watching people enter. He was no longer surrounded by armed men, no longer guarded every hour of the day, no longer a shadow everyone feared. The townspeople still respected him. Some were still afraid of him. Old fears did not disappear overnight, but now, when children passed him in the street, they did not hide. They waved. The first time it happened, Thorn looked around, as if the child had mistaken him for someone else. Eulalie saw it. You do realize he waved at you. Thorn looked confused. I know. Then why do you look surprised? I am not used to being seen as something other than a threat. Eulalie smiled. Maybe you should get used to it. He looked at her. You make everything sound simple. No. She shook her head. I just believe difficult things are still possible. Those words stayed with him, because for most of his life, Thorn believed survival was the same as living. He believed if he built enough walls, nothing could hurt him. But walls did not only keep enemies out, they kept love out too. He spent years protecting his heart, like it was something fragile. Then Eulalie came along and showed him that a heart was not meant to be locked away. It was meant to be tested, broken, healed, and given another chance. Bramwell recovered slowly. The bullet wound left him with a permanent scar, but he considered it a small price. I have worse scars, he said. Eulalie looked at him. From what? He smiled. From watching Thorn pretend he did not care about anyone. Thorn shook his head. You talk too much, and you talk too little. For once, Thorn did not argue. Severin stayed in Cinder Gulch. At first, he planned to leave. Old habits pulled him toward the road. Running was easier than staying. But every time he packed his bags, he found a reason to wait another day, then another. Eventually, he stopped calling it waiting. He called it home. He and Thorn did not repair their relationship quickly. Some wounds were too old for one conversation. They argued. They disagreed. They remembered things differently. But they stopped pretending they did not care. One evening, they sat beside the ranch fence, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. "You hated me for a long time," Thorn said. Severin nodded. "Yes. Why?" "Because it was easier than admitting I missed you." Thorn looked down. "I thought you were dead." "I know. I searched. I know." Silence passed. Then Severin said, "You know what made me angriest?" "What?" "That you became exactly what our father taught us to fear." Thorn accepted the words. "I know. But you also became the person who saved me." Thorn looked at him. Severin smiled slightly. "Life is complicated." Thorn almost laughed. "Eulalie says things like that. She is usually right. That is irritating." They both smiled. A small moment. A beginning. Melis spent her days helping rebuild what Calder destroyed. She spoke in the courthouse. She told the truth. Not the easy parts. Not only the parts that made her look brave. She admitted her mistakes, her fear, her silence. People listened because they saw she was not pretending to be perfect. She was simply someone who survived. Eulalie watched her sister one afternoon as she spoke to a group of young women who had lost their homes. "You were always meant to do this," Eulalie said afterward. Melis smiled sadly. "No." "What?" "I was meant to run." Eulalie looked at her. "Then why did you stay?" Melis looked toward the town. "Because someone reminded me that running away and moving forward are not the same thing." Eulalie knew who she meant. They both looked toward Thorn. He was standing near the ranch house, repairing a fence. Not commanding, not fighting, just living. That was the strangest thing about him. The man who once controlled everything had finally learned to let things grow naturally. Months passed. The rumors spread beyond Cinder Gulch. People told stories about the Duke. Some said he was the most dangerous man in Arizona territory. Others said he was the only man brave enough to stand against Judge Calder. Children made the story bigger. They said he fought an entire army alone. They said he rode through fire. They said he never lost a battle. Eulalie always corrected them. "No," she would say. "That is not the story." Then they would ask, "What is the real story?" And she would tell them. She would tell them about a man who was afraid, a man who carried guilt like a weapon, a man who thought being feared was the same as being strong, a man who learned that courage was not the absence of fear, it was choosing something more important than fear. Years later, travelers still stopped in Cinder Gulch. They came looking for the famous Duke. Some expected a cold, cruel legend. Instead, they found a man sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee. They found a man who listened, a man who helped, a man who smiled more often than anyone believed possible. And beside him was Eulalie Voss, the woman who walked into his life like a storm, the woman who refused to fear him, the woman who showed him that redemption was not something someone gave you, it was something you chose every day. One evening, as the sun painted the desert gold, Eulalie sat beside Thorn. The valley was quiet, peaceful, something neither of them thought they would ever have. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "The stagecoach?" "Yes," he smiled. "I think about how angry you were. I was trapped. You threatened me with broken glass. You locked the door. You were trying to escape." "I was." He looked at her. "And now," she looked across the land. Now I know sometimes the things we think are traps are the places where our lives change. Thorn watched her. You really believe that? Yes. She leaned against him. But I still would have preferred you opened the door. He laughed. A real laugh. The kind she rarely heard in the beginning. You still bring that up. Always. The desert wind moved around them. The same wind that carried pain. The same wind that carried secrets. The same wind that carried them toward each other. And somewhere far away, people would always tell stories about Cinder Gulch. They would talk about the fire, the betrayal, the lost ledger, the ruthless judge who thought power made him untouchable. But the story that lasted the longest was not about the battles. It was about a woman who refused to become bitter, a man who refused to remain broken, and a town that learned fear could rule for years, but courage only needed one moment to rise. Because in the West, people learned something important. A person is not remembered by the wounds they carry. They are remembered by what they do after they are wounded. They are not remembered by the darkness they survived. They are remembered by the light they create afterward. So if this story touched your heart, if you believe broken people can find their way back, and if you want to hear more unforgettable Western tales, filled with mystery, love, courage, and redemption, subscribe to this channel. There are still countless stories waiting beyond the horizon, and the next one may be the most dangerous journey yet.